This is Danny Flexon here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Barry Hearn OBE, to give you your full title, legendary sports promoter, of course. And we're here talking today primarily because you've got your autobiography out today, actually. It comes out today, April the 28th. My Life.
Seconds Out and away you go, Danny. I mean, it's 3.5 years of work. See, I would never have written a book because I was waiting for so many people to die. But, you know, now I'm getting old. A lot of them are dead, so I can say the truth about them, you know. But my daughter, 5 years ago, my daughter had twin boys. And about a year after that, she just turned around and said, you've got to write your book, Dad, because I want my boys to read and understand a few things about, because obviously their life is going to be different to my life. She wanted to understand where we came from as a family, what our values are, and what, you know, what a life we've had and how much we've enjoyed it. And then I thought, you know what, that makes sense. So that's why I started it. And I'm very proud of my family, and that's why I finished it, you know.
And you're obviously working alongside Nick Pitt, very capable author, did The Paddy and the Prince memorably, among other books. Why did you decide to work with Nick?
I've known Nick for about 30 years. I mean, he's been with the Sunday Times. He's a top end, but he understands me. I think the most important thing was, you know, I wanted to make sure that the style that the book was put together in was sort of relevant to me. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't something that you could just say, this is a bog standard. On Tuesday, I did this, and on Thursday, I did that, you know. So this is a book that goes into not just the stories or the funny stories, but also some of the principles, some of the ups and downs, and to realise that life isn't sometimes a smooth ride, but you can still enjoy the bumps. And I've enjoyed every second of mine, and hopefully shared some of it and some of the things I've learned with the people that read this book. Hopefully.
Now, it's fair to say you didn't come from an affluent background. You talk at length in the book about your parents, the drive that your mother particularly had. Is that where you feel your entrepreneurial spirit came from her?
Yeah, it's like everything else. The two weird things when I was growing up was, one is I loved boxing when I was younger, and no one in my family, no one boxed, you know. But I would go to the Saturday morning pictures with the kids and always be more excited about watching Pathé News and seeing Rocky Marciano doing something, or, you know, his odd Charles, yeah, all the old. You know, so that was a weird thing. And the second one was like there was absolutely zero entrepreneurial activities in my family. My dad was a bus driver. Most of our family was either dockers or decorators or builders. They were East London, you know, based, Forest Gate. I was born in Dagenham. So I don't know why it ended up like that, but I just think my mother was probably the one that installed in me the desire to improve yourself. I mean, she was a little bit of a working class snob. So she sort of, you know, she wanted me to have elocution lessons. I wanted to go into amateur dramatic society, and, you know, all these things. You know, kids are brutal with other kids that do that, you know, so it taught me how to fight a bit. Verse reading. But looking back on it, I mean, it was exactly the right thing I needed, you know, gave me confidence to stand up and make my point. And, you know, I was a member of the Young Socialists, and I started, you know, I was a big Harold Wilson supporter. And looking back, it had a reason to it that I didn't appreciate at the time. And I think it stood me in good stead.
And what directed you towards sports promotion? Because you were a natural salesman from very early on, but why sports particularly?
I mean, I grew up wanting to be heavyweight champion of the world so bad, until I found out later on in life that I wasn't that good at fighting. It was a bit of a career setback.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tried every single sport because I'm a very competitive person and I like to win. But God had given me gold medal in enthusiasm and not even a bronze in ability. So I was always okay at everything, but I was never special. So as it went on, you realised, you know, this is not going to work, isn't, you know. I threw myself into business, but my passion for sport remained, and it was a natural conversion of me from a wannabe sports person into a definite sports promoter. And that appealed to me because I didn't get 100% of the adrenaline, but I got enough of it to really make me feel involved, you know. And I've never lost that, even now. You know, I'm up and down Sheffield to the Crucible at the moment. I still get a tingle every time I go there. Every big fight, you know, even if you watch it on TV, you'll go. So I'm an out-and-out sportsman that was never quite good enough to make it on my own. But fortunately, God, in his wisdom, decided that he was going to make me the best sports promoter in the world. So I had to settle for that.
Now, you first made your big strides in snooker. One of the bits I found really interesting in the book was the issues you had around the European Snooker League, 1989. You say in the book it's the closest you've come to kind of jacking it in. How close were you to kind of giving up on your dream at that point?
I was like a fighter coming out in the championship rounds and questioning whether I really want to be in this fight, you know. Bear in mind, I was super smart when I was younger, so I became a chartered accountant very early, one of the youngest. So I always had a career to fall back on, you know. Yeah. But the passion for sport and the love of development, particularly snooker in the early days, means that Matchroom started in 1982 when I sold a chain of snooker halls that I'd been investing in. I made a lot of money. In 1982, I was going to retire and just play cricket and golf and go fishing. I was 34, and then I decided not to do that. You know, after about 6 weeks, I was climbing up the walls, but I sort of thought, well, we'll have some fun. We'll form Matchroom. And it wasn't formed to make money. It was formed to have fun and exploit, if you like, the snooker boom, Steve Davis in particular. And that's what we did. And, you know, 87, I did Joe Bugner, made a lot of money on it. Well, so I was flying. And then we hit the big recession of 1988, 89. And at the same time, I'd made this decision to invest in more and more events because I could see something was happening on the TV scene coming in from America with ESPN. We didn't have that in a lot of your listeners today don't understand that there was no sport on. You know, it was BBC and ITV, 15 minutes on a Saturday afternoon. That was your lot. So people like me had no chance at all, absolutely zero chance. But I knew something was coming. And of course, I invested much too early. And it ended up where all the money I'd made in 82, I'd done that and many more millions, which the bank lent me. Thank you. Unfortunately, I had to pay it back. And so it, you know, customer after customer went bust. The people, broadcasters didn't have any money. I was still doing events. They were all losing money over and over again. I was in love with the event business. I was in love with boxing in particular. And it was doing my brains. But, you know, as you say, the Christmas Eve, it was the story where I was on the floor and I'm thinking to myself, do you know what? Luckily, I've got, you know, I have a good qualification as a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. I can always get a job. You know, so my family's not, you know, family first. I can't, you know, I'm not going to starve. And I made this pitch to the chief executive of Trust House 40 Hotels to try and sponsor the European Snooker League, which was in January. And I needed 300 grand, I really needed 300 grand. And I made a terrible pitch because my heart wasn't in it. It was Christmas Eve. I walked off Slough Station looking like something out of a Dickens novel. And you know when you haven't performed, don't you? You know yourself. You look in the mirror and you go, "God, that was terrible. I wouldn't buy that off me. It was so bad." Super salesman, God, super idiot. You know. So, and he just looked up and said, "You must need this." I said, "Well, I do." He said, "But it's Christmas Eve." I said, "I know." And he went, "And I've got no money." And I thought, that's it. That's the last kick in the nuts. Game over. Just game over. Give it a good shout. No one can criticise me. It's the 11th round. Well, I can't win the fight. You know, there's no point in sending me out. So, okay. And I thought I'd go out in style. I just said to this guy, "Listen, I appreciate your time. Hope you and your family have a wonderful Christmas, blah, blah, blah." And I turned to leave and he went, "But I've got hotel rooms." And I said, what do you mean? Trust House 40 got the best hotels in the world at that stage. They had Sandy Lane in Barbados, Plaza Athénée in New York, Georges V in Paris, Waldorf Hotel in London, you know, some big name hotels. He said, "I'll give you 300 grand hotels rooms instead of 300 grand in cash." And I shook his hand and we both knew that handshake is always good enough. On the way back to Slough Station, I phoned some mates of mine up in the travel business and I sold the lot for a 40% discount for 180 grand in cash. And that 180 grand saved my company. But more importantly, it saved me That was the last financial problem I had, 1989. Oh. So that's 30 odd years ago. Every year since then, every year we got bigger and better and wiser. So I learned a lot, but mostly I learned about myself, which is, I don't know, I don't want to compare it because, I never boxed at any level. So I don't want to compare it to a fight, but it's very similar. During a fight, you find out about yourself. You take a big shot, you realise, oh, I can take a shot. Or you go down and you think, I can't take a shot. I mean, last time I had gloves on was famously with Eddie, and he was getting to be quite obnoxious rich kid, which growing up, I hated those type of people. And suddenly I had a son that was one. And I wanted to find out what he was like. So I thought the only way to do it is get him in the ring and have a proper fight, find out what type of guy he is. Is he a bottle job? Is he a swallower? Is he just a flash kid on the, And I hit him with a good shot, First round, I was trying to knock him out. I wanted to see what I had. Did he get up? But he didn't go down. I thought, this is not good news. And he dropped me twice in the second round with body shots. He was only 16, but he was a lump, and I wasn't that good anyway. But I left the gym happier than he did because I found out what I wanted to find out. And sport can educate you with that. Provided you don't con yourself, provided you don't tell yourself porky. We all tell the odd porky pie elsewhere, but as you get older, you tell the truth. But you must never tell yourself lies because that's it. There's no one to believe. So during those periods, it was really rough. And as soon as we did that deal, Sky launched in 1990. I met and developed more of a relationship with Chris Eubank. Suddenly, everything turned out roses, and we haven't had one overall backward step. I mean, COVID hit us a little bit, but the size we operate now is so big. I mean, we're not a boxing company yet. We're a global sports promotion company, and we're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the world. And it all came from trudging out of Slough Station in the snow with my begging bowl, and that's what it was like.
Lisa,
it was, please, can I have some more? It was. But you need to go through those days in the same way. Again, if you take the comparison with boxing, in the same way you go through the amateurs or whatever, and you learn, and you go in with the big boys, and you get whacked, and do you come back or do you jack it in? That's the question, and I'll never jack anything in. That's not in my nature.
I want to talk a little bit about your relationships with two sportsmen in particular, because you talk about them at length in the book, and that's Steve Davis and Chris Eubank. You talk about how ultimately you love those two guys and you would have taken a bullet for them, you actually say in the book. What made those guys different and your relationship with them different from, because you worked with thousands of sportsmen and women?
Yeah. It is a relationship thing. I mean, you see, people sometimes get it wrong. Yes, money's really important, especially it's not nice not having enough, and how much is enough. That's what, But the relationship, you got first two different people, completely different people. Steve Davis and I mean, we were two council house kids with absolutely nothing. He lived in South London, in Plumstead. I was in those days in Debden Industrial Estate. So we had a dream, and the dream was he wanted to be the best snooker player in the world, and I wanted to be really important and powerful and make a load of money. But I probably wasn't quite so sure how I was going to get there, but he knew how he was going to get there. But the two of us made a brilliant team because he concentrated on his job and I concentrated on mine. Mine was the promotion of him and snooker. His was winning matches. And we developed a relationship that went beyond client and, a manager. We became like brothers, and when you say take a bullet for him, not messing about, someone would have walked in front of Eubank, walk into the ring. Me and Ronnie Davis, his trainer, would have stood in front of him. And that's not just being bravado. That's the depth of the passion that was involved. And a lot of that stays with us and with Eddie today. I mean, I think Eddie would do the same for Anthony Joshua or Katie Taylor, because they do become a bit of your family. You actually fall in love with these top sports because you see how much they suffer. You see how hard they train, you see what they dedicate themselves to. You know, it's a pleasure to be on a journey with them. And you know, we always know we're still going to be there at the end of that journey. They may not. And that's, you know, when you've been through things like Michael Watson being injured and stuff like that, you look in the mirror and you say, did I do the right thing? Was I fair? Was I understand? You can always be better. You can always be a better person. But actually taking these people to your heart, and you do it in the knowledge that a lot of them will turn out to be disloyal son of bitches, you know? And yet still come back the next day for the next kid that has a dream. That's the mark of a proper promoter.
You talked about the Michael Watson tragedy there. You did everything you could at the time. No one can criticise your acts. But did you ever consider walking away from the sport as a whole just because of what occurred?
I've always taken the view that, I mean, obviously the Boxing Board of Control were held liable for the disaster of that night. But I've always taken the actual view that anyone involved in that night and anyone involved in boxing should share a level of responsibility. You know, because you do. I did question, I did question myself afterwards to think, should we even be allowing this brutal sport? You know, I mean, your podcast, they want to hear this, don't they? Fight fans want to hear this at the top.
They'll be switching off.
Yeah. There's no more boxing. That's it, Baz.
Yeah, no point now.
As a bloke, you analyse yourself when you see things like Michael. I mean, I saw Michael in hospital, and something that will live with me for the rest of my life. I'm grateful to say, still a close friend of mine, and we see each other now. So that makes me feel better, but not cleared. In the end, you come down to saying it's all about individual choice, and we live in a democracy, and people have the right. And you soften the blow by saying boxing changes people's lives, which it inevitably does. Sometimes for the worse, but often for the better. So from where I came from, in my own business career, I was very lucky to get the opportunity to improve myself. In boxers, it's a lot harder than that. They have to fight their way to the top, you know. I just had to study my way to the top, which is not quite as painful.
And let's talk about Eddie, the son and heir, as it were. Now, before we get into more detail, you talk in the book about his brief amateur career, something that's caused a lot of conversation over the last couple of years. Can you confirm once and for all that he was indeed 3-0 as an amateur with Billericay ABC?
3-0 is definitely true, but I'm not going to tell you he's any good. He used to jump around like he was on Zebedee or something, Magic Roundabout. And it was, I'll tell you what, I was probably more nervous than him. I was the one that said to the organisers, you do me a favour today, announce this kid as Eddie Hills, because I thought, I can see some of the people. People are strange. I don't know why everyone don't love me because I'm such a lovely guy, but sometimes you go in these places and there's a bit of jealousy, a bit of envy or whatever. And I didn't want anyone taking liberties with my boy. Obviously, I'm his dad. We all love our children. And I remember I think it was, it's been covered, isn't it? I think it was the second fight where he came over to me and went, I've only got the fat kid over there, And I went like, Eddie, you don't ever say that in boxing, It's like ability. And of course, he's walked on to a right hand first punch, got respect immediately and learned a massive lesson. But also, why it was so significant was it is important, even at any level. I mean, I was still sparring at 46 or something like that. I was no good, but it was part of a fitness regime. And I don't think no one tried to kill me, or some of them might have tried a little bit, but it taught me things, and it gave me a better understanding and appreciation of the noble art, because you find out quite quickly how good it is. And I enjoyed, I ended up busting my shoulder sparring with heavyweight, and I was quite pleased to get out, because I clearly was going to get out sooner or later, because I was useless. But you need to know, even with Steve Davis, I used to play best of 101 frames with Steve Davis. 101 frames used to take months, and he would try his nuts off every ball. And I could never beat. I mean, I used to get 70 start and didn't beat him, so it was
wow.
But it was important for me to share that pain and to understand what he's going through. If I'm going to, you don't just promote things to make a few quid. There's people out there, but they don't last. We call them fur coat, no knickers. A lot of sports promoters are like that. They talk a great fight. When it comes down to it, they ain't got any money. You know, they like it. They think it's sexy or whatever. And it is. It's exciting to be involved. You know, but you've got to love what you do. You've got to have passion. And you have passion for the people. So you have to understand what they go through. So Eddie's had that. But more importantly, he came home after he was in the gym one night. I don't know whether he was 16 or 17, something like that. And he just said, I'm going to jack this in. And I'm like, well, you know, you've had, listen, tiny fights, they don't mean anything. But I said, you know, you can fight, but don't worry about your dad. You're not trying to outdo me because I was useless. But what's the reason for your decision? He said, some travellers come down today. He said, a couple of them came in the gym. I sparred with both of them. He said, I ain't ever going to be as tough as them. And I thought to myself, that's a character remark.
Yeah.
There's no bravado, you know. So, I mean, look, not being funny, I don't know your career. I don't know what you did. But whoever you are, I can get you 5 wins. Right? You turn pro, I'll get you 5 wins. I'll find 5 geezers that my dog could beat, you know? So he could have gone down that route. But he realised straight away, and that's the appreciation that you need to have about the noble art. You weren't going to be tough enough. But what he didn't tell me at the time that he was going to be the best boxing promoter I've ever seen anywhere in the world, and that he was going to dominate the sports on a global basis and not worry about little parochial infighting, because that's small time. Look at the bigger picture. And from a business standpoint, I applaud him, and that's why he's much better than his old man.
Now, obviously, I work in the boxing media, so I see your son quite a lot. And what strikes me over the last couple of years is that often the queues to interview Eddie at these events are longer than for the featured fighters. Yeah. How do you feel about the way boxing's changed and that the promoter is now a focal point?
It's always been the case, you know. It's always been the case. You go back, you can go right back to Barnum, you know, you go back to the early days, promoters in circuses. They're larger than life characters because they're selling tickets, they're selling themselves, they're selling the show, he's selling his clients. You know, if you said to me, name, and I apologise to fans of this, but if you said to me, name 10 MMA fighters,
yeah,
the UFC, and once I got past McGregor or someone like that, I'm struggling. But I named Dana White straight away. You know, WWE, you know, it's another great franchise, you know. Fight fans mustn't be too parochial and get too upset, but it's a business, you know. It's a proper business. The talent is the king now, where it never used to be. The promoters used to be the king as well, financially. They used to be the ones in charge. I'm so happy that that's changed now, because I think the fighters do deserve to be, you know, the most important aspect. But from a publicity point of view, the fighters are getting the benefit of being promoted by someone who is extremely well known within the industry and can therefore generate the type of money that we've not seen in boxing ever before. I mean, there's been big days for British boxing, and I was involved in a lot of them, and the other Maloney, Warren, all these type of guys. They've never really kicked on, you know. Kicked on now is these fighters. I mean, the purses you're talking about are unbelievable. They're unbelievable. You know, you're sitting there. I was listening to Eddie the other night talking about, Yardy, talking about trying to get Buatsi in with Yardy.
Yeah.
I like 2 nice kids, and it'll be a great fight. And then you get it, and it's like, yeah, he got offered $1 million. I'm not so involved day to day. We offered him £1 million to fight Buatsi. Let me just get that right. £1 million. You know, that is the same number of numbers I'm thinking of, isn't it? 1,000,000. £1 million. Now, I'm saying the best fight I ever saw domestically was Ben Eubank 1. Boxing was big in that time, you know, ITV, free to air, all that sort of stuff. Eubank got 100 grand. No, 300 grand, because he was the champion. You know? So £1 million. Just go back on that. £1 million. You know, what has he done? And by the way, what has Buatsi done as well? I'm not just saying it, I'm not having a go at anybody. I'm just saying, so what you realise is somehow, some way, The two girls that are fighting at Madison Square Gardens are both getting 7-figure purses.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Let me run that back past you. You know, two girls are going in. One, they're headlining Madison Square Gardens.
MSG, yeah.
And two, they're getting 7 figures. When Jane Couch used to box, she used to often box for absolutely nothing because if someone liked her enough and she was a nice girl, someone would say, "Oh, go on, you can have a fight, and I'll pay your exes. You know, it's £100." So where has the game come? Where has it gone? And why has it got there? Well, it's not got there because of old timers like me, Warren, all that lot. We're yesterday, mate. Listen, I'm not having a knock with him either. He's a good promoter. He works hard. He's looking a little bit, you know, having a nice holiday Frank time. But it's like there's a new world out there. And that new world is social media, developing personalities where the promoter actually is. And I think if you, in fairness, I agree with you, if you took Fury and Joshua out of the mix, I think Eddie's number 3 in notoriety amongst fighters. You know, and it comes down to a promoter. You know, where's Josh Taylor's image? He's a great fighter, this kid, you know. He's a great fighter. Where is he? Where is he? Still a great fighter. So we can't knock it. The fighters get the benefit of having a famous promoter around them. And there's nothing new about it. Don King used to, although Don King was a bit of a rascal with money sometimes, but he used to pay the biggest purses out there because he used to attract the biggest amount of money, and it was all done on his own persona.
Now, you know Eddie better than anyone. We see the kind of Eddie Hearn persona, if you like, with interviews on TV, on podcasts, and so on and so forth. How close is that image that he projects to the real Eddie Hearn that you know, the one who comes round for Sunday dinner?
Yeah, it's spot on. I mean, I think when you get to a certain level of independence, you can achieve that wonderful independent feel about just be yourself. So, you know, when you all start off, me especially, you know, ducking and diving and trying to make a living, you're really selling something, you know, might not even be remotely related to you. As you get older, you get a bit more reflective. Obviously, you get wealthier. You can afford to be independent. Eddie's got that from day one. So what you see is what you get. He is the same. And we all, by the way, we're a very competitive family, and we all take the mick out of everyone. I mean, Sunday dinner at my house is brutal, you know. His sister will kill him, and he'll do something to his brother-in-law. But he is what he is. It sounds terrible. I mean, he's my boy. So obviously I love him, but he's a one-off, and he's a good man, and that's perhaps more important. And that comes through when you listen to ex-fighters that have gone through the ringer around the fight game, and they talk about Eddie. I can't remember getting a bad vibe from any fight. In my 40-odd years in boxing, I've never been sued, or I've never had a problem with a fighter about his purses or payments or anything like that. It's just not the way we run our business. We're lucky. We're not just a boxing promoter. We're a sports promoter. So we globalise everything we do. But I think, you know, the fighters will be the final judge of that. But for what you see, yeah, he's equally annoying at Sunday lunch.
I can imagine. Either inside or outside sports and your career, any regrets?
Yeah, a couple. I mean, obviously, I've regretted people more than events. I'm quite trustworthy. I trust people, and sometimes that trust is not repaid. I remember Mickey Duff saying to me once when he saw how involved I get with people, and he said, "You've got to be careful, son. You know, if you want loyalty, buy a dog." But I didn't want to turn out to be cynical and old like that, you know. So I'd rather give people the chance. But there's a couple out there I wish I hadn't, to be honest with you. As far as
name names, can you tell us who they are?
I mean, look, Steve Collins and I had a dispute where he didn't want to pay me, and he won. You know, I'm not knocking it, but the relationship I thought was stronger than that, and he didn't want to pay for whatever reason. But it's yesterday, and if I saw him in the street, I'd cross over.
Yeah.
No, I saw him in the I'd nod and smile. Listen, I don't want to get bitter and cynical in boxing. You have to take the rough with the smooth. But for all of the little stories like that, and a couple of others, I mean, look, Steve Robinson left us to go to Frank Warren, and I had to sue him in the High Court, and I won. And I really regretted it because I like Steve Robinson. I like him today. You know, he was a good story, if you like, in terms of minute substitute wins and all that. There's a few like that, and I'm sure other promoters, probably from my early days, have got stories about me on the same thing. You know, you nicked him off me and all that sort of stuff. Today, it's a different world. It's much more professional, and the numbers are much bigger. And there isn't a massive amount of talent out there at the very, very high level. You know, we talk about Tyson Fury and AJ. You know, we look at Dylan White. We look at, I mean, obviously, I think Parker's going to fight Joe Joyce. I like Joe Joyce a lot. I think he's got a great engine on him. So, you know, there are some out there. And in many ways in sport, you don't want everyone to be a superstar because there's not enough space, and it's supply and demand. If you've got 12 superstars, the money available is divided by 12. If you've got 4, the money available is divided by 4. So do your maths. It's quite straightforward. But it's, you know, sport is such an exciting thing that you can't expect it all to be, you know, lovely roses in every day. It doesn't work. Life doesn't work like that. You have to be resilient, and you have to have a plan, you know, and the plan is built with us, has always been built around sustainability.
It's been absolutely fascinating, Barry. My Life, Barry Hearn, My Life, out today, April 28th, anywhere you get your books. It's a fascinating read. I flew through it, primarily because I only got it a couple of days before the interview, but I was planning just to scan it, and I actually read it cover to cover because it was so engrossing. So yeah, great job for you and Nick Pitt, of course, but you lived it, so more so to you.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that, mate, and carry on the good work, spread the gospel.
I'll do my best.
Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take life too seriously, but always just try and tell the truth, and people will respond to that. That's what sometimes is missing in this crazy world.
Great stuff. Cheers, Barry, and take care.
All the best. See you, boy.
Cheers, mate.